Okay, now this from CNN. US suspends talks with Russia over Syria. The US announced Monday it is suspending its participation in bilateral channels with Russia that had come about as part of the short-lived cessation of hostilities in Syria. This is not a decision that was taken lightly. State Department spokesman John Kirby said in a statement announcing the suspension. And a bit further down it reads that John Kerry, the Secretary of State, slammed both Russia and the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad for their role in perpetuating the conflict. Now, the tensions between the US and Russia are mounting day by day. Friends, Washington's irresponsible behaviour in this conflict could quite easily escalate the Syrian crisis into World War III. And it does make you think, why does Washington seem to be so hell-bent on provoking Russia and accusing them of everything, including the recently released report of the downing of MH17, the passenger plane that came down over Ukraine a few years ago? Russia is constantly demonised by Western mainstream media. Just recently, the New York Times put out its propaganda piece, Vladimir Putin's Outlaw State. And if any politician dares to talk about Russia in more positive terms, they get immediately silenced and accused of being a Russian insider. If you ask me, it makes absolute sense to be friends with Russia. Now, remember how Hillary famously accused Donald Trump and those behind Brexit and the alternative media of being backed by President Putin? Friends, what an outrageous assertion that was. But more dangerous than these accusations are the continued claims by the establishment and the mainstream media that Putin is to blame for all the troubles in Ukraine and Syria. But this only illustrates, friends, that the establishment is feverishly working away to paint a dark and terrifying picture of the Russians, so when we do go to war, the people will feel perfectly justified in doing so. Well, for one thing, for the globalists, a war would go in favour for them at a time when they seem to be losing their grip on power. What would happen with the US elections, and what would happen with Brexit? It seems Hillary Clinton is losing in the race to the White House, and Brexit is moving forward with recent promises by the British government to repeal the 1972 European Communities Act that gives EU law precedence over UK law, and the triggering of Article 50 no later than March 2017, which begins the formal separation of the UK and makes her an independent sovereign nation with the power to govern its own affairs. The Prime Minister Theresa May said a truly global Britain is possible, and it is in sight. Now, both Brexit happening and Hillary losing would cause a severe setback for global governance. Now, obviously, a war with the potential to go global, like the crisis in Syria, would go in favour of the globalists. Friends, let's pray. Let's pray for a de-escalation of hostilities and some sanity to take hold of all those in power across the EU, the US, Syria and Russia.